Today on the Tom Kelly Show, Tom admits he gets stage fright doing his own podcast. And Tom will stop referring to himself in the third person. See, this is the exact kind of F-ups that are driving me crazy, that I'm freaked out by. Let's start the show.
The Tom Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know about the Tom Kelly Show.
Content warning. Spoiler alert. Yes, I am nervous, and that is keeping me from doing this lately. You are experiencing the Tom Kelly Show. I have a million things I want to podcast about. I've had a great run. God damn it. You know what? Screw it. I'm not actually answering that. That is somebody from Amazon buzzing the damn door, and this is exactly what's been driving me nuts podcasting lately. I've had a great run, people. I've had a couple of things go locally viral. I just did a thing about Merrick, New York, and thanks to your help, thanks to you guys tagging Debbie Gibson in that video, and thanks to our friend at Long Island Reels and Long Island Wise Guy, she discovered it, and I have Debbie Gibson tickets for Saturday. And the hard part right now is finding the right person to take to a Debbie Gibson concert. So far, 2 male friends have turned me down, and at least one female friend just was not worth inviting, because honestly, I think Debbie Gibson's 53, 50-ish, whatever it is. I'm 47. So I'm just a little young for Debbie Gibson, for my music listening taste. I don't think I really discovered music till 1992, like when I was a sophomore in high school. Maybe the New Kids on the Block in 89. But whatever it is, I have had trouble. Anyway, I'm having trouble picking someone to go because the women who I have been hanging out with lately are too young for Debbie Gibson, and I don't know who I want to ask to go with me. That's the story on that. There's 1 or 2 people I wouldn't mind taking who I think would be into it, but I'm like, you didn't want to date me a couple of years ago. Why do you want to date me now? And that's the story. And then I don't want to bring other people and think, oh my God, they think I want to date them. So this is why I go to things alone. So this is the podcast today, people. I've had a couple of shows where, because I've been successful, I go through this thing of, oh my gosh, everything I say on the podcast has to be worthy of going viral. I had this. And then when I produce a big show, I go through this ambition of, oh my gosh, I have to produce a bigger show. And I actually blame my friend Mark Epstein, who I've been blaming for all of my successes lately. And I'm saying this with a smile, Mark. Mark and I had a great conversation up in Stamford, Connecticut, talking about the podcast. He may or may not have said he hated guests. Then I mentioned on our podcast with Clayton Fletcher, which a lot of you loved, which was a great conversation about the return of investment of bringing comedy into work. And Clayton, and it became a thing of I wanted to show clips of my friend Brian saying one thing, Mark saying another, and whatnot, and then other things are going viral. And then I shut down. I shut down on my successes, people. And I actually just did therapy before. You get into why am I doing certain aspects of comedy? Like right now, folks, I am famous. Within a 1-mile radius of the center of Massapequa Park, Long Island. Right now, I am famous east of the Route 321. See, I'm not going to do it at 321. See, this is the thing. When I've been doing so well with clipping things, I've been pausing and starting over, and there's this pressure of I want to go viral on Instagram. Like I want to do the thing that's working. But then on the other hand, like my friend Paul was saying, Tom, now you're just chasing your next serotonin hit. And no, I don't know. I feel like I've been feeling this way since a year after the pandemic, not during the pandemic, but I'm close to something big. I just don't know what that is. And what is something big? I'm close to a layer of success that will make me feel better about myself that might fill a few holes inside of me, might bring me a few bucks. Like, listen, talking about Salpino, the grocery store. I did a joke that paid for Thanksgiving dinner. And it sounds stupid, but the joke that I told gave me a gift that I was able to share with the very people I want to be happy with my successes. It sounds stupid, but like I have, I got a lot of money in the bank. I'm pretty successful. But my financial success, if you quantify success by money and being able to pay your rent, I am very successful, but my success has always been in creating for other people or opening for other people. And it was just so nice to have something I did turn into blank, which I could then share with people I love. And now, going a step beyond that, I did a video about Merrick, Long Island, which I should roll in. It's a joke that my national audience won't quite get a kick out of, but that led into me getting invited to Debbie Gibson's show at the Gramercy something or another theater in New York City this Saturday night. And I don't know. I'm in a weird thing of, I talked about this with my therapist, is I've always been afraid of making fun of Long Island because I don't want to bring shame to my family. My mom was a teacher. I didn't want to do something so embarrassing that she'd have to quit her job and would lose her pension. And honestly, I'm not that far off with that fear. Maybe I wasn't years ago, but that fear is valid now. It's a New York Post headline. Viral, edgy comedian is the son of a Syosset school district employee. It's that could be a New York Post thing if the wrong thing went into my mouth. And going the other way of, bashing the town, that kind of thing. My brother even said it to me. Just remember, we still live there. And it's just fucking annoying that's where I'm getting the most success. And then again, all these fears, you start to shut down. I mean, thank God my best friend Mike was in town on Saturday. He and his daughter Katie drove around with me in Merrick, Long Island, and we recorded me saying stupid things in front of a few Merrick landmarks. And and honestly, if it weren't for that support from him and his brother Pete, I wonder where I'd be at certain points in my career, or with my own creativity. I'm lucky to have a friend who's that supportive. And you also, when you have a friend who's that supportive, you can't expect every friend and person you meet to be that supportive, And what I find ironic is I've enjoyed my anonymity in my hometown. I like walking around and having nobody know who I am. And when you talk about when we had Whitney Euland on the show, the celebrity energy coach, and she talked about, she's worth following on TikTok in that she talks about how, are you afraid of people you love judging you? Then you can't be famous, I want to be famous, but I want a media blackout in Massapequa, Long Island. And then I just think it's hilarious that me making fun of Massapequa, Long Island is that which is boosting my Instagram followers, which then, when the criticism is close to home, you get a little more neurotic. And again, now I'm shutting down and rambling straight to camera. Like the nice thing about a live stand-up show is it's, hey, you're performing here on this night, do it, be funny. And if you don't do it, or, you have to do it. And if you're not funny, it's over, Whereas me right now, I'm making a conscious creative decision to allow me to be interrupted by that doorbell because I need to get back into the habit of doing this again. Like when I first started doing this during the pandemic, Jeanette Barber gave me an assignment of doing the podcast 4 days a week just to practice talking to the microphone. And then I added this video layer, which is friggin' stressful. It adds a bunch of things. Is the light in the right spot? Did you bring in the heavy green screens? So so it makes it a little more complicated. So we get into this. I actually wrote a handwritten list in my new notebook. And again, you talk about me being afraid of making chances. I actually had this book made at the Moleskin. Is that the fancy place in the mall? Moleskin. I had a great notebook of just good work ideas. This is my working notebook, and this has become my comedy notebook, this sparkly notebook. It was a gift from Carla Okerson's daughter, and it's a long story, but I've been writing like jokes and things to do lists in this, and because this notebook is so nice, I've been shy about writing in it, and in many ways, that's how I've been with the podcast lately. I have a bunch of crazy ideas. I'm just having trouble getting over the hump of myself. And I mean, in Christ, is this the price of being successful? Is then you're like, crap, I don't want to do more of this. I just had a good note. Let's retire now. Long Island Reels just shared me. Let's retire. Anyway, and again, when I get into why I live for the morning text message from my friend Mark Epstein, who listens on his bike rides, when I live for Dan and Brian, who listen early in the morning, and even though Dan listens on 1.5 speed, I appreciate him listening all the same. And I live for, again, not to magic mirror this in the middle of the show, but you know who you are, people. You know who you are in the fan group. Judy, Diana, Colleen. There's a few new listeners who've popped on, and I don't have their information handy. But why am I podcasting? So I made a handwritten list in my businessy notebook. It's important to note that, podcasts are unimportant, but they connect you with people. Audio broadcasting connects you with people. And I have to remember that this is not like stand-up. You don't need to have a punchline every minute. Some of you guys are just listening the same way you listen to a morning radio show in the car. You're half asleep and you just want a friend with you. And I'm happy to be that friend. I actually enjoy being that friend, and we'll get to that in a minute. Why am I podcasting? Reason 2. It gives people a chance to know me on a deeper level. I mean, like, if you think about it, is he more than the guy who just used to perform at a couple of TV shows? Is he more than the guy who's doing a show at Governor's Comedy Club January 27th? Is he more than the guy who just tells weird jokes about towns on Long Island? This is your chance to know about my fears and to know, and maybe in laughing and growing with me, you're laughing and growing yourself. When I have guests on the show, reason 3, why is Tom Kelly podcasting? To get to know guests in a way that I would not know them. For example, I did a 7-minute podcast from the bar at Governor's Comedy Club. Honestly, a throwaway show. But I learned something about a friend of mine named Rob White, or my new friend, Rob White. He's a comedian that I've seen in a suit a bunch of times. And I learned that I have been assigning a punchline of him, like he has a website, whotheFisRobWhite.com. And I have been saying whotheFisChelseaWhite.com to a woman I've met a couple of times named Chelsea White. Sent her a note about it, by the way, and she has not acknowledged it. So now I'm feeling very insecure. Again, I guess I'm sharing my anxiety. Folks, maybe that's what you're getting out of the podcast is for a man who, I have opened for the Prince and Princess of Wales. I have opened for Taylor Swift 3 or 4 times. And yes, I am a ball of anxiety. And if you're a ball of anxiety, well, you're not alone. And by the way, what I just did there is the entire shtick of the Drew Barrymore afternoon talk show. But going back to my thing of getting to know people, if I didn't podcast, I would not have realized that Rob White and Chelsea White were not the same person. That sounds weird in the recap, but if you listen to the podcast from last week, it'll make more sense. But also then in writing about Rob White and looking at his website, turns out he has a really interesting podcast where he gives people tattoos while talking to them. Will I be a guest on that show? I thought about it, but I'm not that desperate for attention. Are you? Do you want a free tattoo and have an interesting story to tell to your tattoo artist? Who the F is Rob White on YouTube? But again, if I had not had him on a podcast. And it sounds stupid, but that idea of, oh, let's do a show at the bar. If I didn't get into that mindset, I would not have learned that detail about him. Is that life-changing? No. Which brings me back to that important point of when I get afraid of this is podcasting is not that important. That's a great line of advice that I got from Elizabeth Hasselbeck, 12, 14 years ago. I once asked her, Elizabeth, how do you perform with Barbara Walters at the table and talking about blank view, this view, that view? And she said very wholeheartedly to me, she says, Tom, I just remember that this isn't that important. I'm not a soldier fighting on the front lines. People aren't going to die if I say the wrong thing. And whatever, and again, that's a great way to feel like your career doesn't matter is go compare yourself to a soldier. Go compare yourself to this or that, and then you suddenly go, oh, wow. Why is Tom Kelly podcasting? Get access to people who would not normally talk to me if I did not have a podcast. Free information and growth. We'll save that for another time. Next time I have, next time I have an expert on the show, you'll know that's me trying to get a free 1 hour session out of an expert. Like, there you go. The celebrity energy coach, Whitney Hewland. Build a community and connect. And it sounds silly, but this is genuinely important to me. And it makes me feel good about doing this, and it's why I keep doing this. Let's face it, people. If there's a lot of, I don't want to say lonely people who listen to my podcast, but there are a lot of people who would love an extra friend. Maybe they see it in me. And what I love about that little Facebook group, the Tom Kelly Show fan group, which I need to eventually rename. And again, that sentence paralyzes me. But the Tom Kelly Show secret fan book, the Tom Kelly Show secret fan group on Facebook. It's a chance for people who might need a friend to connect with other people who might need a friend, and I'm the friend you have in common. Like years ago, I introduced my college buddy Dan Hool to my buddy Jim Schubert, and they became lifelong friends. In fact, they are better friends with each other than either is with me. And I actually like that. Connecting people, showing love where love can be shown, and then that's the network, that's the spider web. And I was thinking about this in therapy just a little bit ago. I've always wanted to use technology to connect with people. Most of you who listen to this are too old or too young to get this. But again, I'm at that weird age group of, I think I've grown up with every layer of technology or have been exposed to it in the 20th and now 21st century. And there was a man named Mr. Scott, no relation to Scotty from Star Trek, but he was the technology teacher at McKenna Junior High, which was only a 7th grade year when I was there. And Mr. Scott was a weird teacher. He was angry. He was older. I don't know if anybody really talked about, he has to be dead by now, so I don't feel bad about saying this, but Mr. Scott showed a little interest in me and a few other guys because he had the technology club, which was really nerds who wanted to wire a phone. Like, he just collected all these things that just would look like wiry trash. And he had a ham radio kit. And I love the idea of being able to talk on a microphone and have it go out. And then you would get a little bit of a reaction. In many ways, isn't that the beginning of an Instagram Live? Isn't that the beginning of what this podcast is? I'm talking out into space. I don't know if anybody's out there. And then, some of you guys comment on YouTube or you'll send a DM. And I challenge you guys to share the DMs in the Tom Kelly Show Facebook group so that way we all know that there's more of us. It's not just you and I. It's you, me, and a bunch of other wonderful folks who could use an extra friend. And then you get into probably the two things that are paralyzing me are reasons 6 and 7 on my Why is Tom Kelly podcasting list. I want clips that do better elsewhere. I do. I listen, I mean, I am a comedian who is still doing this for a living. And yes, if I can take this 20-minute podcast and get a 15-second joke out of it that does well on Instagram, that's a lot for me. I'll add a 6A here, which is, it's a chance for me. Actually, this fits into reason 7, which is stage time and reps. Listen, the more you talk, the more you can. The more you do something, the more you can. And the more you do it, the more you can. I know I'm saying the more you do this, the more you can, but it's crazy. But the more, especially now that I've lost the LOL Comedy Club, I've lost a certain chunk of reps that gave me confidence that I could just grab a mic and start rambling and funny crap will come out of my mouth. And I'm still going through that adapting phase of where am I going to get my stage time? I'm starting to do open mics again. And again, I lost my balls in the last 2 weeks. And boom, here I am just throwing the damn light on, recording against a brick wall, and hoping something good comes out of my mouth. And I'll add 6A or 6.5 between 6 and 7 is a couple of the jokes that I have started on this podcast have become then social media bits that have become my signature bits when I'm doing live stand-up. And, what I also have to remember, bringing this back to reason 1, and maybe this applies to whatever it is you're doing in life, it's not that important, and you have to give yourself permission to fail. Have I said anything so funny on the show in the last 22 minutes, 30 seconds that has changed your life? I am confident I have not. Have I said anything deep and real that have made you connected? I hope so. You'll have to let me know. And yeah, I don't know. The hard part about getting back on the saddle is when you do it publicly or a little more publicly, I'm exposing myself to you guys. I'm going to stick to my structure of the Jeanette Barber structure of just do a 20-something minute podcast to get yourself back on the horse, And again, I'm getting shut down by having so much advice. You don't know what people need. Should I do lots of short podcasts? Should I do one big one? Should I do it once a week? Should I do it twice a week? Should I do it 3 times a week? Should I just do an hour? Or should I just do 2-minute little, like what Instagram is telling you to do? Just do a 90-second podcast every day. Again, those all count as reps. Anyway, what I like about this is I got off the proverbial horse and have done something today, and that's the victory. So we're back to our very human roots of, is this a self-help comedy podcast? Today it is, people. I have yet to figure out how to friggin' brand it, but here it is. So I hope that if I were closing this up on a deep note, if I had a wish for this show, I wish gratitude. My gratitude is thank you for taking this ride with me to the very end. And my wish for you for this show is maybe after listening to this show, you for a few minutes could get back onto a horse that you love that also scares you. But not an actual horse that might throw you off the horse and kill you. Be safe. Yeah, don't suddenly go jumping out of a plane, that you haven't trained for, without a parachute. I don't know, you know what I mean, people. Okay? Do something small that scares you, that brings you closer to something that makes you happy. All right? And until next time, good night, New York.